Hey Jeff, thanks for joining me.
Hey Steve, thanks for having me again.
Happy to have you. We are talking today about another article here and about San Francisco again in the news. Um, Title: Will Big Tech's return to office push resuscitate downtown San Francisco? Uh, this article is kind of talking about some of the big players that seem to be coming back to work in San Francisco, mentioning Uber, Salesforce, Meta, Microsoft, coming to bring workers back in to the office, mentioning record office vacancy rates still. We've seen this impact downtown San Francisco more than others. Some interesting data points in this. Um, Data from anonymous tech industry job forum revealed that around 400 tech companies have returned to a hybrid workforce from a fully remote. That's something we've definitely seen in other data points is this move to hybrid where people are still in the office sometime and not remote where they're completely out of it. Um, there's points here about how it's just hard to have a culture with people not in the office. Some other good data here that data indicates that just over 200 tech companies are continuing to embrace full-time remote work. That number's definitely been coming down. And, some of the other points we also see here is, you know, San Francisco office attendance jumped 40 to 42.6% after the Labor Day holiday. It kind of seems that the article is trying to be a little bit maybe more optimistic around SF than is maybe warranted by that particular data point of going from 40 to 42.1. Uh, Anyhow, some of your thoughts on some of the stuff where we're seeing where we are seeing people return to office, as well as maybe some of the stuff in this article that's trying to be particularly positive about San Francisco.
It's interesting. I wish I knew what the 40 the bump from 40 to 42.9%, excuse me, what that number actually looks like, in real figures, not percentages. But from the realistic perception here, I think the really glaring number is that data from CBRE, the vacancy rate for the third quarter reached a record 33.9%.
Yeah.
I mean, you just I don't you got to overcome that number somehow, but I just don't know how you get there. And just claiming that office attendance is going to help you decrease that is optimistic is probably a good way to put that.
Yeah, and I'll just kind of to me there's kind of 2 points in this article is one, there is data that's showing even in tech we're moving away from this remote. And then there's other data
Hmm.
that kind of really shows that it was always more hybrid. That they were letting people be out of the office a bit more, but they were still expecting people to be in the office. I think that's just a national trend.
But look, I
Uh,
mean, I
mhm.
I think even I from people that have worked at tech companies, I don't want to name any of the big ones, but even some of the big ones that thought that they had processes and procedures in place to manage at the at home or work from home really wasn't an effective process or efficient. And they've realized that I think one of them said Meta has a requirement of at minimum 3 days a week.
Yeah,
Part of that I think comes not just from the efficiency of work, but the amount of work product or the shared work product that comes from people being at the office.
yeah, and then the other thing I was pointing out is that I think there's San Francisco is kind of a special case. I mean, there's just not other cities with these kinds of uh, vacancy rates, and the argument I've always made is some of this is just public policy. So some of this is just the level of property crime and whatnot, and you can talk about tech, you can talk about remote work, but in the rest of Silicon Valley, really, in the peninsula, you're not seeing this play out with these kind of vacancy rates. So I think the article kind of misses that, trying to point to this as purely being a remote work trend. I think San Francisco's problems actually go a lot further than that,
Of course.
to very high property crime, quality of life issues, and businesses just locating to other places. A lot of times, just other places in Silicon Valley. But yeah, I guess we'll be continuing to talk about San Francisco in the news for as long as its downtown looks like a ghost town. Thanks for your input.
Thanks, Steve.